Welcome to a new episode of the Opening Bid Unfiltered podcast here at the NASDAQ in Times Square. I'm Yahoo Finance Executive Editor Brian Sozzi. Like I always say, this podcast will make you a smarter investor, period. And we're in my wheelhouse today, all things retail and consumer. And this is also another one of these special episodes. I mentioned this when I just had Jim Cramer on the podcast recently. He was my longtime former boss. Special episode for me there, and a special episode for me here because I started my career as a retail analyst, and one of the first companies I covered was a company then known as Coach. It's known as Tapestry now, but it was then known as Coach, led by longtime CEO Lew Frankfort. And Lew is here, former longtime CEO of Coach. When I was listening to you on these earnings calls way back when, Lew, I never thought, one, I didn't even know what a podcast was, let alone I'd be sitting across from you at a desk talking about these things. So it's really nice to see you.
And it's very nice to see you, too.
I had no clue what accessible luxury meant. And I should mention, Lew is out with a fabulous new book. It's called Bagman, which I think is very appropriate, and we're going to get more into this book. But I had no idea what accessible luxury meant until I heard you on every single earnings call. What brought you into the fashion industry?
It was serendipitous. I had spent 10 years in city government running daycare and Head Start during my last role. This is a child care program, and I was very client focused on children and families in need. And I took a cab ride one evening with a professor who said to me, I have a childhood friend who runs a small handbag company, and he's looking for a protege. Do you have any interest? And 4 interviews later, I accepted his offer.
That was what, was 1979?
1979.
Wow. What was Coach in those early days?
Coach was a maker of natural leather cowhide bags, durable, quality. Leather developed a patina over time. And even though the business was small, only $6 million, it had a very loyal and devoted following.
What drove that loyalty?
The emotions and images that people have with their bag. Owning a bag for a woman is very personal. She opens it 50, 60 times a day. And the Coach bag, with its natural leather, developed a patina over time. It felt good. You were able to keep your essentials in it. Coach represented value, durability, superior craftsmanship, and in many ways, authenticity. It was the real thing.
I hope, I know the Tapestry team well. I hope they don't yell at me for calling it Coach. I mean, it's Coach. You led Coach at the times before they made that acquisition of Kate Spade. So in those early days, you're getting your feelers around and getting to learn the business. I mean, and then by 1995, you're president of Coach. How did you go from those entry-level days to 1995, building this company?
I actually became president in 1985.
1985, sorry, you were CEO in 1985.
I became CEO in 1985 after I helped the founder identify a company that he would be able to monetize the value. The deal that I had made with him, if I stayed to help him through the transition, was that he would leave the day of the sale. And even though he thought I wasn't ready yet to be CEO, he would tell the purchaser I was. And he kept his word. We became part of the Sara Lee Corporation in 1985 and stayed there until the year 2000 when we went public.
That is something I think a lot of people don't realize, that Coach was owned by Sara Lee. What was that like? I mean, food company. I mean, Sara Lee had great ambitions to own so many parts of the aisle. But then, they also own Coach, a company making leather bags.
Well, they actually had a very large portfolio of consumer products such as Hanes, Playtex, Champion, Aris Isotoner, a glove company. When the winters were cold, people wore gloves. And now it's occasionally the case here in New York. So they did have a history of packaged goods. They were attracted to Coach because at the time, even though our sales were only $25 million when we met them, we called ourselves a multi-channel business because we sold a wholesale. We had department and specialty stores. I had started a catalog in 1980, and in 1981, we opened our first retail store on Madison Avenue, and it was before most American manufacturers reached consumers directly, and it was a key strategy of our growth to develop channels where we would be available wherever consumers chose to shop. And that was our philosophy, and they felt that we might be able to help accelerate the learning in some of their other consumer packaged brands.
And then you also took Coach public.
That's true.
That's wild. You know, like I mentioned, my early formative analyst years covering Coach was listening to you on earnings calls. I did every quarter. And you were always passionate about talking about bags, talking about the different styles at the company. Like, what drove that passion?
Well, I loved Coach, and I think I loved it from the beginning. And I believed in what Coach represented. And in the early years, I thought of Coach as a democratized luxury brand. In America, we don't have a tradition of high luxury. We're a country of immigrants. And I felt Coach as a brand at the time, between mass and luxury, we occupied an important space in America because consumers were increasingly moving into the middle class and looking for brands that they could believe in, brands that would deliver and exceed on their promise. And I thought that Coach really mirrored the best of America and the best of New York. So my passion was from the beginning. I always led with purpose and belief. And I do believe that when you consider employment, whether as a CEO or in any leadership role or even in an entry-level role, if you have the opportunity of choice, choose a company that makes a product or delivers a service in an environment where you can thrive and excel, and a product and service that you believe in.
During your tenure, Lew, I saw some of the best stuff, merchandise that the Coach ever put out. I mean, you never seemed to waver on quality when a lot of your competitors did. In fact, they changed the hardware on it. The gold plating would come off after it rained. I mean, I never got that at Coach. You know, how hard is it to make decisions like that in such a competitive market?
Quality was built into our DNA from the beginning, and I give the founder, Miles Kahn, great credit for producing a product that he called the hero. And everything revolved around the product. I believe that product is the center of the Coach story, but it's anchored by consumers, brand, and the marketplace. So it's in our DNA from the beginning. There was never a question in anyone's mind that we would ever compromise on materials or workmanship.
I remember all the different cycles. So the C bag had the moment when I was in college, and it was so popular. Then during the Great Recession, people didn't want to have a C or another logo on a bag because folks didn't want to seem like they were showing off. Like, where are we at now in the fashion cycle?
We're at a inflection point. Gen Z today represents about 25% of luxury accessory spending in the United States. Soon it will be 45%. And when we think about Gen Z, we think about young men and women who are focused on both. We think about sustainability, we think about purpose, we think about authenticity. And what we have done at Coach and what Todd Kahn and Stuart Vivas are doing today is really focusing emotionally and culturally on what's relevant. And what's relevant is sustainability, authenticity. It's really reshaping luxury. Young people are very discerning, and they want companies to follow ethics, both in the workplace and in the choice of materials. They're looking for products that will enable them to express themselves, not in the traditional sense of fine luxury. The resale market is real strong, and that's going to only get stronger. Vintage bags.
Does this generation want to have less? Are they, I guess, maybe more inclined to pay up for an amazing product from Coach than try to, I don't know, pay less and own 10 different products?
That's a great question. I think for the most part, they want to have products in their wardrobe that they believe in, products that reflect their values, and they would rather pay more for a Coach bag than perhaps an unbranded bag that won't have the durability, the sense of expression that Coach has.
All right, hang with us, Lew. We're going to go off for a very quick break. We'll be right back with Opening Bid Unfiltered. All right, welcome back to Opening Bid Unfiltered here at the NASDAQ in Times Square. Having a really cool chat, one that hits home. Lew Frankfort, former CEO of Coach. So, Lew, you left Coach, in 2014?
That's correct.
And almost 12 years later, you're back with this book. I'm not saying you haven't been busy. I mean, investing, advising a lot of CEOs, doing you. I'm like, why do you feel so compelled to write this book at this point in time?
I had multiple motivations. One, my children and others encouraged me to tell a real story, not only about leadership and values or building an iconic brand, but also on my fear of failure, mental health, and I come clean, and I do this to basically help younger people understand that life is not just a bowl of cherries, that you can have a lot, and I encourage people in my book to listen to their bodies, and if their bodies are telling them through a lack of sleep, fatigue, backache, that things aren't good, they need to both address their physical well-being and mental health.
What toll did being the CEO for all those years of Coach take on you?
I'm still here, and
which is great. It's very nice to see you.
Let's start that I'm still here, and I've been really focused on healthy aging, which is really listening to my body, routines and rituals, exercise, meditation, massage, acupuncture, therapy when needed, and I encourage everyone to really be mindful that you want your bodies to work for you and there's no compromise. I also encourage employers, companies where we invest, to be conscious of the total person, including their mental health.
You talk a little bit in the book about depressive episodes. Like, how did you manage the highs and lows of being a very visible public company CEO? In some respects, some would see you, I almost saw you as the founder. I know technically you're not the founder, but when you lead the company for that many years, you're the face of the company.
Well, over the years, I developed better techniques to anticipate where I was traveling. So if I was going into a place where it was going to be dark, I asked myself why and what control do I have over that, and what should I do about that? And doubling down on exercise, compartmentalization, where you work real hard to have time to engage with friends and family and yourself, to refuel, napping, a variety of techniques over time. And I also learned in the workplace to understand when I'm feeling stressed during a meeting, even though I may not be at the beginning of the meeting, before I might pounce on someone, I ask myself, why do I feel that way? How do I want to address that? And what kind of outcome do I want? And my behavior generally varies with the person and the situation. So self-regulation is important as well.
Do you have an academy I can sign up to, Lew? Because it feels like I find this all very helpful and well-timed for many reasons. We'll take that offline. I can't be totally unfiltered here on the podcast. I can't give everybody everything. Do you think CEOs, you're seeing more burnout with CEOs?
I'm sorry?
Are you seeing more burnout with CEOs nowadays?
I'm seeing, younger CEOs much more attuned to their well-being. Not all of them. Clearly, we have lots of hardwired narcissists who think they know more as the business gets bigger, as opposed to being more humble. I try to avoid that. One of the challenges for me is that I'm often attracted to great ideas and may not be as immersive in the way I critique someone because of those ideas. And frequently, I regret that if I invest and work actively with someone, because frequently they're not coachable when they should be humble. They're not.
I have to ask you a little bit about the state of retail. I mean, so many big retailers are dealing with tariffs. I mean, the supply chains are changing. Can we make awesome bags and accessories in the U.S. and make them profitably?
The answer is yes, although if you want to give consumers the best possible value, you really need to make most of your products outside the United States, still out of the finest possible materials, supervised by leaders and craftspeople who really understand make. We live in a global economy, and I believe that we will return to that. I think the tariffs that are in place today and threatened for tomorrow is something that we're going to live with through this administration. But over time, we can only succeed as a global economy.
If you were still leading a retailer, a global retailer, like how do you manage through something like this?
Carefully. I think you need to be very mindful of everything you do, and certainly you want to be thoughtful before you pass on costs to consumers, and you also want to be mindful of not putting your suppliers out of business when you press them to participate with you. You need to be thoughtful and mindful and recognize that consumers during this time might be more inclined to purchase less expensive products, and you might develop more entry-level products for those consumers who are discerning and concerned with expense.
I recently spent a good day with Ford CEO Jim Farley in Detroit, and the theme of his conference at the time was they can't get workers to fill critical jobs. He mentioned that they currently have 6,000 open positions at auto mechanics. I mean, I was just really struck by that. Is it that the U.S. doesn't have someone who could stitch an amazing bag together, or doesn't have that skill? Is that the problem?
50 years ago, we had those skills with our immigrant population, and it helped us become a prosperous and leading nation in the world. And our country depends on new populations to fuel jobs that Americans have graduated from, whose children may not want the same jobs that their parents had. And the reality is that many, many jobs are remaining unfilled in the United States, and it will become a significant problem in the service industries, in farming, in factories, in other enterprise in the months and years ahead, if we don't find a way to attract immigrants from second and third world countries who want to live the American dream.
Wow. Wow. At the end of the program, we always love to get a hot take from our guests. Nothing planned here. I am convinced that you came up with the majority of the names for Coach handbags. You would always mention them on earnings calls. Like, how does a name for a handbag come about? I mean, Coach bags, they have names. They still do.
Yes, and the reason they have names is because you want women and men to be able to identify the particular bag they have. Again, they're attached to their bag emotionally. They have images and associations. It's a lot easier if you know someone and you know their name, because if you have a bag and it's the Brooklyn bag, you know it's a Brooklyn bag, and you can proudly say that. If it's a no-name bag, you're not going to have that type of intimacy with a bag. So naming bags is an art and science. It's a blend of magic and logic. And you try to identify not only the personality of the potential user, but the attributes of the bag and what does it stand for. And Coach is a New York brand, even though we are also a global brand.
Lastly, Lew, look, I mean, your dad was a police officer, right? New York City police officer. You've come a long way. Like, how would you summarize your entire, corporate career?
I really believe that life has two parts. One is purpose and relationships. And I've been fortunate through my career, starting in government and through my coach world, to really have belief in what I was doing and to be able to attract and motivate teams that were able to focus on the greater good, teams that were highly collaborative, extremely curious, and create a culture that is a learning environment. The thing that I'm most proud of today is that Coach has become a legacy brand. It endures over generations in the minds and hearts of men and women around the world. And that, to me, is my ultimate quest. When I began with Coach, it was a small business in the Northeast. We ran out of product by Thanksgiving. We sold to anyone who paid their bills. And today, Coach is a global powerhouse. However, there's no complacency on the part of the leadership team. They work every day to understand where consumers were, where they are today, and where they're traveling tomorrow. And their focus on Gen Z is right on spot.
It was a real treat for me to see you. I remember being sad when that news crossed that you were leaving, and that's full stop. You taught me a lot about retail. You may not have realized who else is listening on those earnings calls way back when, but I was definitely listening. Lew Frankfort, former CEO of Coach.Tapestry, that is Coach Friends. Get his new book, Bagman. It's just a fascinating read. How'd you pick this bag?
Bag was part of our line for 75 years, some form of it. I mean, again, we've been in the hearts and minds of consumers for a long time, and the intention of the leadership team and everyone working with Coach is to continue that for decades to come.
Oh, good to see you. Congrats on this book. And that's it for the latest episode of Opening Bid Unfiltered here at the NASDAQ in Times Square. Continue to hit me with all that love on YouTube, social media platforms. I love all the feedback. It makes me better at doing these interviews, and I really, really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.